This fuse box prop features a loud arcing sound combined with motion and lights to startle anyone nearby. It's remotely controlled with a small remote, allowing timing to be controlled perfectly for when a guest is walking by. The inspiration for the prop came from a video by Big Clive where he demonstrated these high voltage modules. I'll link to his video in the description. After receiving a few of them in the mail and hearing how loud they are, I knew I had to make a prop with them. And yes, they're super loud. If you've ever used the electronic firecrackers that are on the market, these modules are pretty comparable. The arcing actually is quite dangerous, so it's hidden behind a mesh and underneath one of the fuses, well out of the reach of any guests. The arc gap is about 14 millimeters wide, and the gap can be fine-tuned with the highly scientific method of tightening a small zip tie around the two bolts that are acting as electrodes. Some of the light leaks through the mesh to provide flashing behind the broken fuse, but I wanted to give the illusion of the sparking being much closer to the guest than I could safely put it. So fiber optics are run from LEDs on the control board out to the loose wire end. When you have to perform the same operation many times over, I highly recommend taking the time to create a jig. A small jig created on my 3D printer made quick work of the fiber optic bundles. The motion is provided by a simple cam on a 425 RPM geared DC motor that I had on hand. It could stand to be faster, but it's what I had on hand, so I declared it good enough and moved on. I wanted the prop to have a 60 Hz tone constantly playing to call some attention to itself and make guests uneasy about walking by it. Sometimes it's worse if you actually know that something's about to startle you. I tried a sine wave but found that a square wave actually sounded much more menacing. So although it's not technically correct for a standard American AC line, I'm taking some creative license to make it sound more brutal. The prop started its life as a gray ABS case and white PLA prints, but of course I wanted this prop to look super grungy. So the entire case was roughed up and painted with a paint that actually contains iron particles in it. An oxidizer applied throughout the case causes the iron particles to actually rust, convincingly producing the illusion of a well-worn metal fuse box. This was a great looking finish until I applied the clear coat, which substantially darkened the entire thing. So lesson learned there. Always test the entire finish start to end before applying it to the prop and not just parts of the finish. Oh well, it still looks good, just not exactly what I was going for. I'll definitely be using the rusted look again on future props minus the clear coat. Lastly, I hit it with a bit of Fuller's Earth to add some dust on the inside. The prop contains a custom controller board. Making a custom board for this prop was probably a bit overkill since it's not terribly complex nor tight on space, but for around $12 it's an easy way to ensure reliability and skip having to mess with perf board. As a learning exercise, I opted to utilize an Atmega 328P chip directly on the board rather than using an Arduino Nano like I have on previous projects. The cost between the two is about equivalent, but by going directly with a chip I was able to avoid an entire daughter board. The circuit itself is pretty simple, containing just a couple MOSFETs to switch on and off the motor and high voltage coil, an output for the speaker, and some LEDs for the fiber optics. During early tests on a breadboard, I found that the high voltage coil would pull enough current to reset the Atmega every time it came on. So I added 3 slots for filtering capacitors. The value of the capacitors just depend on the power supply you're using. If you're interested in looking at the prop further, the board schematics and designs are available on EasyEDA, the object files are on Thingiverse, and the source code is available on GitHub. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching.